Okay, now, good evening, and apologize for the little delay here. We just had, we're a little short-staffed tonight, but we still have a quorum, so we're good on most things. But welcome to the Fredonia Central School District Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. And when we start the meetings, we always start with a pledge to the flag. So Kara, come on forward. Would you lead us in the pledge to the flag tonight? Come on up front here.
She said yes,
We always have one of our senior leaders lead us in the pledge. So if you want to come forward. There you go. Okay. You ready? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you leave, this is a gift for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I told you you'd like it. Okay, so we have an agenda for tonight's meeting. The adoption of the consent agenda upon a motion and a second and affirmative vote by members present approves each and every item so designated. However, prior to the adoption of the consent agenda, any board member may remove any item from the consent agenda. This item will then come up for discussion as part of the regular agenda. So if I could get a motion to bring that to the floor, please. Mr. Johnston and Ms. Paul Fortner. Is there anything anyone would like to pull out of the consent agenda? Mr. Johnson.
8B1 for my wife.
Okay. So here's going to be the issue for this, because we need 4 members for a quorum.
Right.
And if you have a conflict of interest for your wife being a coach, only her, then you will abstain from that, which means we don't have a quorum for your wife for that item. So she'll have to come up at another meeting, but everything else will be part of the consent. Okay? Okay. Anything else anyone would like to pull out? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. The board has reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Concerns and comments during this session should be directly related to items listed on the proposed agenda for this meeting. Audience members seeking a response should complete a board correspondence sheet and return it to our district clerk, Christine Slater. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Later. Okay. Okay. If not, we go right into special presentations, and we have a iReady update with Mr. Drellinger, Christine Graham, and Julie Hassett. Would you like to?
Yeah, just a quick intro. First of all, thank you so much for being here, everybody. We really appreciate it. As you know, we, over the last couple of years, have got back to the idea of presenting here as part of our board meetings and really kind of framing it around those pieces of our vision statement. How are we being innovative? How are we being dynamic? How are we being global in the learning opportunities that we're offering students? I think this is another great example of how those things are playing out in our district, and particularly at the elementary school tonight. And we appreciate your time, efforts, and energy. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. And on behalf of Ms. Graham and Ms. Hassett, we kind of came together. We're excited for this presentation to show you some of the great things that we have going on at the elementary school, in particular with reading instruction. So I'll walk you through the first half of the presentation, and I'll turn it over to our teachers, and they can talk a little bit about their programming in our building. So it's kind of cool. So our readers are unique. And I wanted to start off with a little sports analogy. And our little guys, this is in honor of you, Dr. Ziliak. So reading is kind of like weightlifting. You see, if I wanted to go out there and bench press 200 pounds today, not going to be able to do it, not going to lie to you. But if you meet me where I'm at, the bar, and then maybe I start lifting that bar, I would slowly start adding some weights, and pretty soon, I'd be bigger than Dr. Z. You see, reading is much the same way. If those little kids want to read at a 12th grade level, we can give them a book, they can kick it around a little bit, but they might not be able to lift that bar yet. However, if we meet them at their level, give them plenty of opportunities to flex their muscles, over time they'll build fluency and stamina, and they too will be bench pressing 500 pounds. It's pretty cool, right? So, but what we do is to better understand our readers is we use data. 3 times a year, we administer something called the iReady diagnostic. And this is a test that is adaptive, and it means it meets kids where they're at, and it helps us better understand them as readers. And what I have for you today is a breakdown of this data, and we can kind of walk through it together, and I'll show you what we learned. And then we'll talk about how we use it in the classroom to design our instruction. So, what you'll see in the second year is a breakdown of the beginning of the year diagnostic and then the middle of the year. And it's broken down into 5 different color codes, with the dark green being above grade level standards and the dark red being below grade level standards. So in the fall, all of our students took this assessment, and this was our results. We had 47% of our kids right in the middle of the road here. 12% of our kids were high flyers, and then we had some kids a little bit below grade level. We used that data, and we started to design some instruction for kiddos. And then they took the assessment in early January, and we saw some results. And we were pleased to say that our winter results showed an improvement on our reading level of our students. And when you put the winter and the fall side by side, you can see some of the impressive work that our teachers have been doing. Our greens have increased, and our reds have decreased. And this is kind of a measure of all of our reading instruction as a litmus test to see if what we're doing, is it working? So what I see when I look at that is I see growth. And that's a little bit of our RTI program, our Tier 1 instruction, and our iReady instruction as well. But this data kind of gives us a snapshot. But also, iReady can break it down, and they can kind of show us some specifics. And what they do is they break it down into something called domains. And domains are different skills that readers develop over time. Starting off with phonological awareness and phonics. These are like your foundations of reading. And then you get into high frequency words. These are also things called sight words. It's just words that you have to know right away by looking at them. And after you develop those skills, your vocabulary increases. And then your comprehension of literature and informational text can increase as well. So, for example, the first graders, if we just take a look at their data, in the fall compared to in the winter, we see there was some growth. And when we put them side by side, we can kind of see the growth was specific to the foundations of reading, based around mostly phonics and high-frequency words. These are the first things that you need to develop as a reader. And then your vocabulary will increase the more you read, and then your ability to comprehend text will increase as you read more complex text, which is kind of cool. But when you take a look at all of the grades broken down by their domains, you get to see some patterns. You can kind of see the picture of a reader. In first grade, your phonics are, the basis, but then by the time you get in second and third grade, you've mastered those skills. And then by the time you get to fourth grade, your vocabulary is increasing and your ability to comprehend is increasing as well. So we can kind of use this to help understand our programming and what we're doing here at the elementary school. Because a shift happens in general in the elementary school. We shift from the learning to read focus to reading to learn. And we can kind of use this data to help us pinpoint the appropriate time for us to make that shift. Because at some point, our students will have mastered the ability to read, and now we're going to read to learn. So that's what we'll kind of talk about progressive of this. Much like teachers use data, we believe, through conversations with our RTI team here, that it was important this year to have data conversations with our kids. So we set out a goal for our teachers to have individual meetings with all of our students and say, hey, look, you did this computer-based test in the fall. This was your score, 390, or whatever it is. That is just a number to you. But here, let me explain that to you. So our teachers sat down and they set a growth goal for kids. We say, hey, look, you were at a 390, we'd like you to get to a 410. How do you do that? You read more, you read at your level, and you really give us your best effort. And every student was given a goal, and then we're going to reward those kids who met that goal as well. So they had an understanding going into the assessment of what they were doing and how they can show what they know. And the results were pretty good. So our growth goals were measured as well. So what you see here is the median progress towards the annual typical growth. So to help you better understand that, we have to understand what the median means. So if we take all of our readers and we line them up from lowest performing to highest performing, and you found that kiddo in the middle, that means that kid was already 91% of the way towards a year's worth of growth, yet it's only January. So we would expect them to be around the 50th percent of the way there, but they're already 91% of the way there. So that was impressive, that amount of growth. And our kids were thrilled by the amount of growth that they've made. So that was pretty happy for us to see. But if you take a look at these growth goals, we can break them down. And we break them down by where the kids were when they started the year. So what you're seeing here at the very top, it says the mid or above grade level kids. In January, those kids, or that group of kids that started the year kind of as high flyers, the median student had already met 113% of their goal. So what that tells you is that we're doing a great job with our kids who come in at a high level. We give them opportunity to continue growing as readers. That's because we have books readily available. We put them on a program that challenges their reading. And then if you look at the very bottom there were kids that came in September, 3 or more grade levels below where they should be. Those kids, when lined up from the lowest performing to the highest performing, the median kid, or the kid right in the middle, is already 117% towards a year's worth of growth halfway through the year. So we're doing a great job with our kiddos who need extra help. Yeah?
Sorry, Mr. Drollinger. That year's worth of growth for someone that's 3 or more grade levels below is targeting to get them where by the end of that year?
That's a great question. So that is just one year's worth of regular annual growth. So what we have stretch goals for those kiddos. So stretch goals are either a 1 or 2 year goal that if they meet their stretch goal for their designated amount of time, they will be caught up.
So they will be caught up to grade level if they
grade
meet
level, if they meet their stretch goal for either the 1 or 2 year period of time. And the results for our stretch goals are the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, it's a good question. You're spot on, right? So
Yeah.
Great. So that's what we said. So what you just saw was annual typical growth, what an average student can perform in 1 year. But stretch goals are a 1 or 2 year path that will get them back to where they should be. And our results are on the screen. So our January 2023 results are on the screen. So what you see to the extreme right is that 19% of all the students in our building have already met their stretch growth goal, which is impressive. So 1 in 5 kids have already closed that gap. And then how you read this moving across the screen is that 10% of our kids are 80 to 99% of the way there. They're likely going to hit that goal because remember there's another half of the school year. And then 18% are 60 to 79% of the way there. And then at the very end, 19% are less than 19% of the way there. But those early results for January are promising that those kids are working towards closing those gaps, which is pretty cool. So, iReady is only one tool that we use to help us better understand our readers. We like to triangulate our data, or we just use multiple points to better understand our kids. And this year, we were proud to be aligned building across the entire building by giving nationally normed assessments in reading fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary at all grade levels, grades 1 through 4. And when you get to nationally normed things, the results are pretty cool to look at. So a crash course in statistics is what you see here is a normal distribution curve. And you get this for grades where you have a sample pool that is large enough. So what you see, and how you read this, is the 50th percentile there. If you scored at the 50th percentile, that means half of the kids did better than you, half of the kids did worse than you. And when you look at assessments where we have students across the nation taking it, we can use this to help us see where our kids are compared to those in the nation. We can show those results right now, which is kind of cool. So, and then we also look at, in our programming, is we look for that 10th percentile and below. Those are kids that we target with specific small group instruction, and you guys can talk about that and how we make it those kids. So, to better understand this, let's look at first grade reading fluency, nationwide data for the winter. So, in the middle of the road, the 50th percentile is reading at 25 words per minute. So, across the nation, first graders in the month of January, about the 50th percentile can read 25 words per minute. At the 75th percentile, they're reading 95 words per minute. And at the 25th percentile, they're reading 12 words per minute. At the 10th percentile, they're only reading 6 words per minute. And that's good for us to know because we have to intervene at that point. So what we do is we color code this. The green is the average range. That's where the majority of the kids fall. And that's why the curve is so big, because that represents a lot of students in that area. The blue is our kids who are excelling at reading fluency, first graders, at this point of year. Red we're concerned about, and yellow we're concerned about as well. So, just so you have a better understanding of nationwide data for the winter by grade level and words per minute, these are the numbers that we look at. And this is just a nationally normed set of data that we use in our building to help us measure our kids. But what I like to do is I wanted to see how do our kids compare across the nation. Because we can use this nationally normed curve for all reading levels because the sample pool is so big. So it's kind of cool. So what you see right here is at the very top is a normal distribution for the nation and then versus Fredonia Elementary kids by grade level. So the first grade is labeled there at the grade 1. And currently, that means a little bit more than 10%, a little bit more of our kids are reading at the 10th percentile or below. But you see our green population is about on with the 50th percentile. But as we go down in grades 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, you start to see that our students start beating the normally distributed curve because we have more kids in the green and the blue. So I think that's pretty impressive for our program. And it kind of works to address, well, how are our kids right here in Fredonia doing compared to those in the nation on a normally distributed curve? So it's kind of a lot to take in. But I think that it's important for us to see the good things that we're doing here at Fredonia. So now these guys are going to take over and talk a little bit about what they do to make database decisions to meet our kids where they're at.
So we use all that information that you've just seen, that Mark just talked about. We organize it into specific spreadsheets to be able to determine if they qualify for RTI or response to intervention services. And that is what both Julie and I provide. We provide intervention services for literacy and math if necessary. So, oh, there we go. So this is an example of one such data sheet that you'll see. We take all of the grade level information that's collected from students. We see all of the iReady data that's in there. It's itemized by each of those domains, and then we have all of the normed assessments that we just talked to you about with vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency, all color-coded. So you can see at a quick glance, students that are in the greens and blues across the board, those are students that are on grade level or they're making the progress that is necessary and are not necessarily concerned with their academic gains at this point in time. But the students that you're seeing significant reds across the row or a lot of yellows across the row, those are the students that are showing that they need additional support than just the tier 1 classroom level instruction that's currently being provided to them. So we try to add additional services to them. And so in order to do that, we take that data sheet, 5 different times a year, we meet with all the grade level teachers. We've included special areas and hold data meetings to be able to review this information and determine, as a school, is there something specific we need to focus on at each grade level that we can target, and or which students are going to be receiving that individualized support. And so what we offer
Our tier 2 supports and tier 3 supports. So our tier 2 supports, they meet with us 3 days a week with 30 minutes each day. And it's a small group targeting specific skill areas. And our tier 3s will receive us 5 days a week, 30 minutes at a time, and a smaller group in targeting their individual needs. And when we're at these data meetings, we will say, are we going to focus on some more fluency, or are we going to focus on sight words, and really nail down what we are focusing on.
So this level of support really helps us to make sure we're differentiating our instruction within the elementary school to meet each individual student where they're at and try to be able to help them to make as much growth and or gains as possible within one academic year.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have any capacity concerns? So when we're going through these data sheets and we're saying we're making decisions on who's tier 2 and who's tier 3, does everybody, like, do we have any concerns or issues with being able to really get every kid the support that they need at the level they need?
I mean, I think that's a great question, and I would say that absolutely that's something that we talk about often, because within this realm, we have to limit our, per the state regulations and guidance, we limit the number of students that are eligible to be in one particular RTI or intervention group at one 30-minute time frame. So that if we're teaching a full class again, it's not the same level of service or targeted support that they're getting, so it really keeps it into 6 students, potentially smaller, depending on each group's needs. And so within that time frame, there's only so many 30-minute groups that can happen within one day. So that is definitely something that we keep paying attention to. And at one point in time, pre-COVID, we had 4 RTI providers within the elementary school. And now with post-COVID, this year is our first year back to having 2. So we're still 2 RTI providers short of what we had pre-COVID.
So have we adjusted our standards for who's getting which level of service based on capacity?
So what we try to do, if we get into a scenario where we have to do that, like in the beginning of the year, there was some more needs here or there. So what we try to do is, research best shows that the quicker you can close the learning gap, the better it is. And so in a very unique situation like that, we provide as much support as possible to students in 1st and 2nd grade, and then add in additional supports for 3rd and 4th grade as we go about. What do you say with that?
Yeah, we kind of set a target, so we were faced with that challenge, so we met as a team, and our priority was, I think, 60-40.
Right.
But it was more than that. We wanted to focus 60% of our efforts on 1st and 2nd grade, and 40% on 3rd and 4th, but I think it ended up being more even in 1st and 2nd grade.
Yeah, and it's been successful, because what we're doing is working. We're seeing a lot of progress and growth. So in the beginning of the year, after our first round of data meetings from the very beginning of September information, all of those students and supports that we were able to provide at that time was only to tier 3 students, and the classroom teachers picked up tier 2 support at that point in time. So that was one way for us to be able to service as many kids as possible, and yet make sure it's as targeted. So during that time frame from September, we were just working with tier 3 students. But now, at this particular present time in the year, because of the growth and the gains that our students have been able to make, we are currently servicing tier 3 students as well as all of the tier 2 students within the area of reading. And our classroom teachers are able to focus solely on differentiating their tier 1 or general population of students that are in there. So we've made some good progress.
Are there more students post-COVID who need the intervention than there were pre-COVID?
I think that what we've noticed, and please add to that, but I think that what we've noticed is definitely like in our lower grade level, so 2nd grade students that during that year, that school year right after COVID, that would have been their kindergarten year. So that was when we were just kind of, everybody across the nation was kind of scrambling. How do we put a program together that keeps us all 6 feet apart? And we're not sharing things, but we do share things in kindergarten, so that's a difficult thing. So we noticed that that particular group does have probably our most level of support right now at this particular stage to try and close those particular gaps from, because that would have been, their pre-K year was when March would have hit and they would have been home, and then kindergarten was our first, everybody figure things out. And so I think our second grade group right now gets our most support.
The neediest.
Cool, but that's what we have for you guys today. Yeah.
One more.
My turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for this. Whoever put this data together could give a master class in data presentation. It is awesome. The explanation and the graphics combined. There's been talk over the years about targeted learning, and, this looks like it's targeted learning.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah,
And,
I was just thrilled that we could use the national norm stuff, because it really grounds our, thinking, say, hey, this is what it is. These are kids across the nation. How do our kids stack up? And then let's use that to help us figure out who's going to get more targeted instruction.
But the blending of the computer with
Yeah.
the teacher is what allows it to happen. I had a question, and I'm wondering if I'm reading this wrong, and I was wondering if we could go back to the grade 1 fall, winter. I was just looking at this, and tell me if I'm reading this wrong or not. Sorry, Christine.
I'm getting a good tutorial here.
Oh, you're doing it, okay.
They're on it.
Yeah, okay, so obviously you can easily see that there's progression and advancement, but take a look at the winter and the greens and the yellows, and now go to grade 2 fall. No,
Oh, yeah, some of those we cut out to,
Okay.
it was in our initial draft, yeah.
well, okay, I'm sorry, but I have it in front of me.
Yeah,
Grade 2 fall is a slide backwards, it looks like.
so that's okay, because we have to keep in mind that this diagnostic test really works to meet the kids where they're at. So, it's hard to compare, and I know where you're going at, how they fell back, but how can I help them explain, the diagnostic meets the kids where they're at?
So it could be a multitude of scenarios. It could be a scenario where maybe there is some regression that you see because of summer, and having been home or not looking at books, not reading perhaps, or not doing it as in a routine fashion. So there could be some of that. And then also, it's a new grade level of content that they're potentially seeing. So they might initially start, because every year when they start this diagnostic, they kind of start with a clean slate. And so they start showing them maybe grade 2 level questions initially, and as they either answer correct, it continues and gets harder, or as they make mistakes, it adjusts and gets to a lower level to pinpoint exactly where they're.
At first glance, I look at it happens every winter to fall a little bit. Not that dramatic, but it's a slide back a little bit. And they always talk about summer regression.
Yeah.
And I
there's
wonder if that's partly what you're seeing there.
It could be part of that, and there's a big difference, a huge difference between a first grade learner and the second grade learner.
Right.
And that falls into a little bit where Mark was mentioning the transition of read to learn and learn to read. So our kindergartners, first graders, and even some of our early second graders are definitely in that learn to read category. They're still learning sight words, sound patterns, how letters go together and make words, and then what happens when you put them all together. That's their focus. And then somewhere between the second grade and third grade range, it completely switches into, here's a story, what did you find out about? And what happened in that story. And so that second grade, third grade year is when that switches. So that's some of maybe what you're seeing as well.
Okay. Thank you.
So it wouldn't take a lot of convincing to convince me that reading is critical, continuing on through high school, through college, through your career, through your life. So how do we create, you're doing things in these grades, that are creating a culture of reading, okay? I mean, there's more than just dealing with the students who are 2, 3 grades behind, but there's things that you're doing with students who are ahead of their class.
Yeah, and
Can
we
you-
celebrate readers. These guys manage our accelerated reader where we reward kids based on how many words. So, you know, the birds are on the
Oh, sure.
Sure.
So every year we adopt a theme that goes around our AR, and this year it is Reading Gives Us Wings. And the students, in the help of the classroom teachers, we just keep encouraging them to read a book. They take a quick quiz on AR, they pass it, they get so many words, and every month we go and we see what milestones they had accomplished. And for first graders, we want them to read 100,000 words for the year. We have some first graders who accomplish that by December. So then their goal is to try to get to 1 million words, and we take pictures with them and we celebrate. But second graders are expected 200,000 words, third graders are 300,000, and our fourth graders are challenged with 600,000 words. So that seems to really encourage them, and we know they take that everywhere with them. They'll talk to their friends, and they're making it a competition among themselves. And then we have a place in our hallway where they receive these monthly milestones, and it's birds and leaves, and they stick them up, and they get to see all these leaves and birds fill up this whole space. So I think that helps encourage the reading.
We were encouraged this year, we brought back the reading buddies where the first graders come meet with the fourth graders and the fourth graders read to the first graders.
Really?
We had
Okay.
lost that with COVID, you know what I mean? But we were like, this has to come back because of our building and things. So that was another thing we do too. So, you know, there are little things throughout the week too as well. But
And we try to help, I think what's important too is we try to help every student, no matter where they fall in their level of reading skill, recognize their own success. So each student slowly builds confidence within themselves, and the more confidence they have, the more success they can have. So we try to celebrate all these little steps, all these little things that they start to become proficient in, so that they feel really confident and feel really good about what their progress is, and that just shines even more.
Do teachers have like a book club of their own?
Some teachers do offer small group reading instruction with individual book choice, so some kids can pick, within their grade level class might pick their own books, other teachers might have a selection of books.
Just, no, I'm talking amongst the teachers themselves.
Oh, amongst the staff. Occasionally.
yeah, we've done book studies in the past. We don't have one going on this year, but
Okay.
you know,
Just curious.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Just one final comment, it's just great to see you challenging the accelerated student. It's wonderful.
At our data meetings, that actually came up because we were encouraged to see the growth of those kiddos. Because oftentimes we focus a lot on our high needs, you know what I mean? But we were really encouraged to see that now we found a way to push these kids as well. You know, we celebrate, we've got some kids reading at the 7th grade level right now, which is impressive, so it's exciting.
Great.
Cool. All right, thanks guys for your time.
That's great work.
Awesome.
Just to
Appreciate it.
piggyback on that, and thank you guys, just to piggyback on that a little bit, when you talk about a quality educational program, there's usually a couple of questions that we ask. Usually one of them initially is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? And then the second question, and in this case, for our reading instruction, that really is in the domains that we were talking about. Those are the skills we want students to have. Then we ask, how do we know anybody learned any of those things? And that typically comes to assessment. So iReady is helping us with that assessment piece. Then the following questions are, how do we support those students who struggle? And I think they did a nice job answering that question. Then also, how do we enhance the educational opportunities for the students who excel? And that is also part of what we talked about here tonight. So when I came on board here, we talked about how can technology and tools connected to technology within an educational setting help us be as efficient as possible, not replace any teachers. We still absolutely believe that the work that's being done one-on-one in the classroom is the most critical thing that happens across all of our classrooms at any grade level. But this tool helps us get at those questions and helps us assist students in a much more efficient way than we've been able to do in the past. It's sort of the next iteration of what's happening in education, and it's great to see the elementary school really embracing it and taking the ball and running with it, and really making it part of what happens in our schools on a daily basis. So this is great news, and we're excited about the movement forward. And again, it connects back to that idea, how are we being innovative, how are we being dynamic, how are we being global, and what we're doing in the district. So I really appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Thank you. So next we have the minutes from our last meeting of January 24th and a special meeting for January 30th. Can I have a motion to bring those to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, and a second?
Second.
Ms. Paul Fortna. Any questions, concerns, edits? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have the minutes from our policy committee meeting, December 14th. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor? Ms. Powell Fortner, and a second?
Second.
Mr. Johnston. Any questions, amplifications on that? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have our financial treasurer's report. And if I could, just to get this on the floor, can I have a motion to bring the school tax refund to the floor?
So moved.
Mr. Johnston, and a second.
Second.
Ms. Hahn. I'm going to ask Mr. Ziliaks, Mr. Forbes, I guess I understand this, or I'm assuming they understand this, but if you could just help us with this real quick.
What happens occasionally is you'll have an entity that files a grievance assessment, or assessment grievance, sorry. And that occurred here. It's for an apartment complex in town. And it was pushed through the process, the agreement was reached. Both parties thought the other party had submitted the paperwork to the county. Neither party submitted paperwork to the county. So in the meantime, we had our tax levy, put the bill out, the entity paid their bill, and then said, hey, wait a minute, we're supposed to have a reduction, and that's what this is.
Okay. So it really wasn't the county's fault. And I know that the county delays for a time period, but that wasn't the case.
Didn't get pushed
Interesting,
forward.
interesting. Okay, okay. Any comments on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next, we have, we're going to have to just bring this to the floor, but we have the letter of resignation for the purpose of retirement for Lisa Johnson. Can I just get that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, and a second.
Second.
Ms. Paul Fortna. And because we're limited in board members tonight, and Mr. Johnston, I understand that you are going to vote against this.
Her day will come.
Her day will come, okay. Well, what I'm going to ask is that because we don't have a quorum without your vote, that we just vote to table this, okay? So if I could get a first and a second, a motion and a second to table this.
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, and a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a probationary appointment for Brittany White. Can I get a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Mr. Johnston, and a second.
Second.
Ms. Powell Fortner. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this, just some circumstances, if we could just, similar to the prior, if we could get a motion and a second to postpone this vote.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Ms. Powell Fortner and Ms. Hahn. Okay? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Thank you. Next, the probationary appointment of Felicia Ellis to a teacher's aide position. We're approving that. Can I get a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Ms. Powell Fortner, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Johnston. Do you have anything on?
Yeah, just real quick, I know we've been just highlighting a couple brief attributes of those people we've been hiring, so we're excited to have Felicia on board. She is a grad of Iroquois, up the road a little bit. She has experience in customer service and quality insurance. She has also served as a legal assistant and has experience in the food service industry as well. So we're excited about that collection of skills and knowledge, and that being part of our school district moving forward. So welcome to Felicia. We're happy to have her join our team.
Great. So any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Welcome to us. Next, what you've all been waiting for, we have an approval of an intramural program for girls flag football. Could I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Powell-Fortna, and a second.
Second.
Ms. Hahn. Okay. Mr. Ziliaks, if you could just, we've been kind of filled in with this, but just
Just a
fill in
quick
some
summary, and I
gaps.
think Mr. Lauer's in the back. I'll ask him to chime in on anything, but again, this is something new to the area, something that's gaining some momentum. In the beginning phases, we tend to couch these things under intramural as opposed to a sport, which means that eventually there'll be advisors attached to this activity. And, you know, in anything that we do, we try to gauge some interest on behalf of our student body, and this seems to be an area that several young ladies are looking forward to participating in. And we're excited to have this be part of our spring activities coming up. And Mr. Lauer, anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So this is really phase one of this officially becoming an intramural, and then we'll move forward from here.
Okay.
Right, that's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any projections on the numbers at this point, or like number of girls that are interested, or?
Yeah, I did a preliminary Google form for girls just to get an interest for it, and we were anywhere between, last I looked, we were about 35, 40 that grades 9 through 12 that showed, yes, we're very interested in it.
How many are required to field a team?
It's 7-on-7, and you need to have, I think, 10 is what they said. That won't be an issue with this.
Does that mean that there'd be just one team, or if the more girls you have, the more teams?
We're only going to have one team this year. I mean, it's only a varsity sport right now in Erie County. So no matter how many girls we get, it's one team. You know, this year we're just doing Chautauqua County team, you know, like a 7-game season down here to kind of get our feet wet. But next year it'd be more like a 12 to 14 game season. But still it would just be one team.
So 12 to 14 games as opposed to boys at what, 8?
Yep.
Interesting. The girls are more durable?
Well, I mean, there's no hitting in this
Yeah,
this football.
okay, all right, we'll see. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Wonderful. Good. Mr. Ziliaks, your district report.
Yep. A couple things, just want to remind everybody of, we continue to put out a s'more as a bi-weekly at this point, update from district office. Again, we're trying to really upgrade and enhance our communication, not only from district office, but also from the district. We tried to include a number of things. This one will officially go out tomorrow. But again, this remains a focus of the district, and we're excited to continue with the s'more, and we can touch on some of those things a little bit later, because I really wanted to focus on, and I'm sorry for those of you who were at our in-service day, because I'm going to repeat some of those things that we talked about on that day. But we're going to summarize, so we won't take it through every detail. But at the end of our last in-service day, we brought everyone together, pre-K to 12, just to take a moment to celebrate the first half of the school year, the good work that's been done, the great work that's been done, and to start to think about the second half of the school year. And I did make a joke, which Mr. Drollinger mentioned tonight, that way back at the beginning of my administrative career, someone warned me and told me I shouldn't use sports analogies because it tends to possibly alienate certain groups of people or people who aren't interested in sports. But somehow we keep coming back to sports analogies. So we kind of used it that, hey, if this was a football game, we're at halftime. And we're really thinking about what went well in that first half of the game and what needs to happen and how can we adjust for that second half. But we started by really talking about what unifies us all, and that came back again to our mission, vision, core beliefs. And for this year, we've also really tapped into our building level focus areas that are the same, whether it's Wheelock Elementary School, middle school, or high school. And each building is really doing a great job focusing around this idea of supporting basic needs, around this idea of building relationships, developing social emotional learning skills, and also, as we heard about tonight, targeting instruction and interventions to address learning growth. So these are alive and well in our building, not only with our mission, vision, core beliefs, but these focus areas are unifying us as well. When we think about that first half of our school year, we asked how it was going, and how I kind of came to this idea was listening to a radio show where people were reflecting on, was the Bills season a success or not? And it was probably split about 50-50 between some people saying, hey, I remember when we were 2-14 or 3-13. I remember when we didn't go to playoffs for a bunch of years. So absolutely this year was a success, although we didn't quite get where we were hoping to go. And other people saying, no, we were supposed to go to the Super Bowl, maybe even win the Super Bowl. And there were a number of things that the team didn't address, and we didn't get a second wide receiver, and we didn't address the safety needs that we had, and the defensive line, so on and so forth. But we really wanted to take a moment to come back to some of this, share some information with you about what has happened this school year, celebrate that, and then think about the second half. So Margie had a couple pieces here and some quotes that she incorporated into this that I think make some nice connections for us.
So we always anchor ourselves into our mission statement. Why do we exist? A place of learning. So when we think about that halftime, you think about that, you're in the tunnel. You're trying to figure out what you do here. So looking at a quote from Von Miller, talking about the fact that he doesn't look at himself in any of the one positions, but rather he tries to be a great football player. So when we think about what we're doing, we all wear many, many hats. We think of ourselves as student-focused, one of our core beliefs. If we lean on those core beliefs, it gives us that well-rounded ability to meet the needs of the whole child. Then we think about our vision statement. Where is it that we're trying to go? We've been really focusing this year on innovation, being innovative and challenging ourselves to provide innovative opportunities. And so going to another quote, it talks about opportunity. It's going to come. Opportunity will come. We don't know when, but when it's there, we make the most of it. That's that trying, that risk, the idea, and that's what innovation is, trying something new. So we talked again about our core beliefs, and again, anchoring into these. This is what it's so easy to get pulled in the day-to-day, so how do we anchor into them? And remembering that despite failures, there's joys. We can't focus on one or the other, kind of like that, how was the Bills season? Some would say it was a failure, and some would say it is a success. But it's what you choose to look at.
And thinking a little bit about, again, how have we been innovative, how have we been dynamic, how have we been global. I'm not going to take the time to read through all of these, but these are things that have happened in this school year. It seems like a long time ago, but we started the year with a new website and an app to increase communication across the district. Over the summer, we wrapped up the Envision Math that is new, both at the elementary school and the middle school. We have a new course offering at the high school involving personal fitness and nutrition. Again, an innovative take on how we can deliver instruction. Same thing at the middle school with the Turning Points course offering, which I think, Mrs. Troutman, we're going to hear a little bit about at our next board meeting. The TRAP Club, Student Ambassador Program, the Fredonia 5 at the high school, building relationships for 5 minutes with off-content conversations, the new STEM classes that are happening, the iReady formative assessment that we heard about tonight, the incorporation of therapy dogs in the district. Thanks again to Tim Wright, who's here tonight. Thank you. Examples and things that have happened around innovation in the first half of the school year. Same thing with being dynamic, thinking about that second step, and again, that connects to the social emotional learning. The idea of the WAS Ed STEM kits, building growth K-12, the outdoor classroom at Wheelock, the idea of the partnership with SUNY Fredonia students. Also, a great project at the middle school, children's book project, connecting middle school students with elementary students, and also Margie bringing a new format to our curriculum council and breaking them into subcommittees this year that have been very successful. Being global, again, getting back to some of those building priorities, the Feed More Western New York program, thinking about the students' basic needs, same thing with the backpack program. Thinking a little bit about this year, now that we're past the pandemic, getting back to conferences, our administrators going to a SANES conference in Lake George, the LitCon conference that just happened recently along with EDUCON, and getting people back out, really taking a global perspective into what's happening around us. The 6th grade using virtual reality and Nearpods to explore places that they study. We had the Chris Herron Assembly earlier, again, bringing a different perspective to our school district. So, again, we just wanted a chance to reflect, celebrate, and really identify those things that have happened, and now we start thinking about the second half of the year. Margie.
So again, you never know how you're going to affect people. And that's really something that is so impactful. It's what we do every day. When we talk about relationships, those relationships have impact. And you never know what a chance meeting will bring. And this is, I would encourage everybody to watch this. There's Kane's Arcade and Kane's Arcade 2. And this one is Kane's Arcade 2. This is a little boy who, his dad owns an auto shop in a rather poor section. And a guy had to come up with his beat-up car to get a new door handle. And it was just, he just needed a new door handle, saw the auto part place, looked like this would be a good spot. Now, little Kane was using, he has to be there in the summertime. His dad's working, so he was using all this cardboard, and he was creating his own arcade out of cardboard. And he was using his own little, trinkets to make, ticket slots and calculators to make different kinds of things. Nobody was coming to this arcade. And so this guy comes in to get the door handle, sees this, asks the kid what this is, and he says, and he goes, well, how much for tickets? And he's like, well, this much for 5, or, for $1 or whatever it was, you can get a fun pass, which is unlimited. And so the guy's like, well, I want the fun pass. And so that turns out to Kane, taking the time to talk to this child, turns into Kane going inside and putting tickets out through and calculating and giving him chances. And he's built all of this out of cardboard and duct tape and hooks and parts he found around his dad's store. And this guy's like, this is amazing. And it turns out the guy is a documentary producer. And so he's like, this kid, he's like, I want to try a GoFundMe, tell his story, and see about starting a college fund, because, this kid, he doesn't have the economic means for this. It goes viral. It's now an entire movement for STEM education in schools, and he just wanted people to come to this arcade. And so all he did was say, come, be patrons here. I'm the one and only patron this kid has had. So he reached out to Kane's dad, they went for pizza, they come back, and it's all of these people. He was just hoping for 10, 15 people. It was hundreds. All with signs, all everything, and it inspired kids around the globe to just innovate. So again, you never know how you can impact the future, impact what's going on. Take the time to listen, talk, make those relationships. And again, we talk about innovation. This was duct tape, cardboard, imagination, and just, that ingenuity.
I think the last thing we talked about, is, we set a lot of goals around those building priorities this year. We've made progress, but we're not quite there. And yet, we're only halfway through the school year, so that's perfectly acceptable. So let's keep moving forward. Let's keep doing our best to get to those end goals that we thought we could make it. And, we tapped into Stefan Diggs here, and your next play is your best play. So great job that we've done in the first 20 weeks, but, we have those best plays to look forward to over the course of the next 20 weeks from now until the end of the school year. So we're excited, and we really just brought it together as a go team, and let's go make this happen. So I just wanted to share with anybody watching through our video or with the board themselves about what that conversation was at our in-service, and really thinking about the first half into the second half. A couple other quick things here in terms of slides. A few meetings ago, we talked about our building condition survey, and we talked a little bit about our facilities. We had our architect Young and right here beginning to talk about that process. And we had a meeting today, and this just gives you a little bit of a timeline in what's happening right now. So we are gathering and collecting our existing drawings and organizing them. We're going to get them to Young and Wright, and that's part of the process of reviewing our district facilities, each building, whether it's Wheelock or our main campus. Eventually, there's going to be a floor plan walkthrough, and really bringing people together to walk through and targeting some of those existing concerns that we have. I know that we have talked several times about the blue teams coming in. Those are their employees who have expertise in certain areas, and taking a look again, general architects, civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical, and plumbing, and really taking a look at our facilities holistically, getting into the data, and then eventually giving us a prioritized list for long-term planning. That will include, I think Mr. Beard's going to talk a little bit tonight about our facilities for our athletics. That includes both inside our buildings and our school grounds. So that is absolutely part of this work and part of the reflection that we'll have at the end of this. So I didn't want us to lose track of this. This is happening over the next couple months into the summer months. We're excited about this opportunity and the expertise that Young and Wright bring to this process, which is impressive. Lastly, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this idea of long-term planning. This is something that's been a conversation at the board and superintendent level over the last year or so. We're moving forward in that area with further thoughts about this, who are the people that can assist us in this effort, but just a couple guiding principles that we're talking about here. That long-term planning is really an effort to produce decisions and actions that shape and guide what an organization is, what it does, and why it does it. We're absolutely looking to involve a broad range of stakeholders across the school community as part of this. We want people to have a voice, we want people to be involved, we want people to be able to share their thoughts about what they believe the district needs and how we can best move forward. We want to be transparent and inclusive in this. The plan must produce action that results in higher student achievement, improved student life, and a greater sense of fulfillment amongst the people that work in the district. And the focus is real and sustained improvement for the entire school community. So we'll begin to talk more about this here in public session, how the district will approach this, and how this connects with other initiatives that are already happening, but also really focusing on how we move forward over the next 3 to 5 years as a school district. So we're excited about this. We look forward to it. It's a little bit of a preview tonight, welcoming everybody into that process. And certainly there'll be opportunities for people to participate, be part of a variety of groups that'll be happening, or just offer input through a survey, or more of a just general forum format to gather input. So that's in play in the district right now as well. That's all I had, unless you had some questions or comments about any of that.
So your facility plan, you won't see a lot of action for probably another 2 months.
Correct.
You won't see a lot of action
Correct.
here in the district.
I'd say right now, it's all behind the scenes, but as we get towards the warmer weather, absolutely, you will see a number of literally in blue shirts across the district. So,
I have 2 questions. One is, when you read through who those blue teams would be comprised of, I didn't hear anything about like a soil expert for the athletic fields.
Yeah.
Will there be someone in that capacity?
yeah, so we talked about that. So I think the initial blush will be, is that in the mix? Will that come forward as a priority? And then they'll start layering in people that have that expertise. So let's just say they went to a district that just did a facilities project and has upgraded turf facilities. They wouldn't necessarily need a soil expert. So that would be something that would come once that's identified as an area for improvement.
And when you talk about long-term planning, is that overlapping at all with this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the building condition survey is basically a long-term plan for our facilities. And I would say it will be running parallel with those other thoughts around, again, student achievement, student life, and how we can really tap into having it being a positive experience for those who work with us and for us.
And so will we have like a focus group or a forum made up of students since they're our number one stakeholder?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So the next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be in 2 weeks, February 28th, 6 o'clock in the high school. Boy, we've got to go back here a minute. I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself. I'm sorry. So the board has reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Mr. Beers?
I would.
Okay. So we've received your document. And I believe that all board members have? Okay, so we've seen it, and I know that you've forwarded this to the Observer. So, you can talk for 5 minutes, but we've already got what your document is. Is there anything, clarification or amplification that you'd like to provide?
Well, I was just going to kind of read through, generally, I went through it today. I know you said I only have 5 minutes, and I kind of did a dry run on it today, and I got it about 5.5. But honestly, I just kind of wanted to know if there was any questions or anything that you folks had for me, or if I could just go through and read it.
You can go through, but yeah, it's...
Okay, thank you. Well, good evening, and again, I'll go as quickly as I can. Good evening. I'd like to speak with you tonight regarding equity as it relates to the athletic department and other extracurricular activities, and also equity or lack thereof within the athletic department itself. To begin with, our athletic facilities are, in a word, embarrassing. From the experience I've had myself as a coach, as a parent spectator, and from speaking with other coaches, embarrassing might not even be strong enough a word. Perhaps dangerous is more accurate. I personally had softball umpires tell me that our field is unsafe for various reasons, from the concrete around the dugouts, holes and ruts in the outfield, extremely unlevel surfaces, to poor drainage, the list goes on and on. Each year when filling out our non-league schedule, opposing coaches that I contact with are only willing to play us if we travel to their field because they don't want to play on our field. To be honest with you, I don't blame them. I personally watched girls fall without coming into contact with anybody on the soccer field and roll their ankles due to the same conditions. I've spoken with soccer coaches who relayed that their officials have also told that their field is unsafe and officials don't enjoy working their games. I've personally been at football games where the start was delayed as officials made our grounds crew go around and fill in gopher holes with dirt because they felt the field was unsafe. I've been here for 23 years. The idea of improving our athletic facilities is continually discussed. I'm glad to see it discussed again tonight. But unfortunately, to this point, it's been continually pushed off. Other extracurricular activities have enjoyed marked improvements. I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that these activities don't need or deserve the attention they've gotten. I've sent you all a document outlining the roughly 20 positions that are either created or saw dramatic increases in salary with the new FTA contract. And out of those 20 positions, none of them involved athletics. It'd be nice to see the playing field level. Nice little pun there. Years ago, I hoped that these improvements would take place in time for my kids to enjoy them. That time has come and gone. The district continues to choose not to employ a trainer, which in my opinion borders on neglect. In the event that an athlete is injured and needs immediate medical attention, as a district we cannot provide it. When it comes out that the coaches have asked repeatedly for years and were ignored, this more than likely will become negligent, or I'm sure a personal injury attorney would see it that way. The nearest AED to our softball field is either in the track and field shed or in the hallway in the middle school, both of which would take several minutes to retrieve in the event that someone had a cardiac event. Clearly unacceptable here, hardball sports like baseball and softball, where students are at greatest risk for sustaining injuries that could possibly lead to a cardiac event. Now, to be fair, the district has made some minor improvements to our fields, which I would call Band-Aids. Drainage was added a few years ago, but it's moderately helped mitigate some of the issues we've had. But in trade, we now have ruts through the outfield, okay, where the ground didn't settle properly where the drainage was added. You can still see the stripes. Running water was also added to our field locations. However, the nearest spigot is about 200 feet away from the field, kept locked and turned off from inside the building, all of which makes it virtually unusable. We also did get new backstops, but their design is flawed. The top part acts as a canopy and actually catches balls or anything else that any kids walking by want to throw up there. Each year prior to our season, I go out there with my own extension lab from home, clear out all the debris, only to be told by the maintenance people that I shouldn't be up there. I pointed this out to administration. I was told that eventually the contractors would come back and make the necessary modifications. This was several years ago. 3 out of the last 4 years, our softball team has lost home field advantage in the playoffs because our field was unplayable, and we've been forced to play at alternative locations. I wonder what the reaction would be from the administration, the board, or the public if after weeks and months of hard work and dedication, just prior to production, that the musical had to get moved to a neighboring district's auditorium because ours didn't have adequate lighting, sound, or was deemed unsafe. I've spoken with neighboring district superintendents on how they managed to get improvements done to their athletic facilities, and his reply was simple. When he speaks to his board, he tells them, yeah, we could get by with what we have, and we could just sit back and watch other area districts around us, using state funding to build these beautiful facilities that their kids can enjoy while we stand pat. And my question to you is that our vision? Because that's really what's happened in the 23 years that I've been here. As far as equity within the athletic department, there doesn't seem to be any formula that dictates the number of paid positions for each sport. Some sports like football enjoy 4 paid positions at the varsity level, 3 at modified, and if everything goes well, 2 in the next couple of years for the girls' flag football team, which is great. At first glance, you might think that's just due to the sheer numbers participating in sports. When you get a little bit of a closer look, you realize that can't be. Boys and girls soccer have roughly 20 or even more, and they only get 1 paid position, when the wrestling team has got less than half that number, and they get 2. For sports like baseball and softball, at minimum, by rule, you need 2, and yet the district still only pays 1. Okay? When I continually ask about this, I don't get any clear answer. And to be clear, I'm not saying the sports who enjoy multiple paid positions don't need or deserve them. I'm just asking why, when a clear inequity exists, doesn't anyone, the district or the FTA, seem willing to address it? At the beginning of each of the last 2 fall seasons, the football team's fields, plural, more than 1, has been maintained, lined, prepared so that they can practice and play from day 1. At the same time, the girls' soccer fields were not lined, goals had no nets on them, and nothing been done to their fields, making the first day of practice difficult to really get anything meaningful done. Why? I mean, if it happens once, okay, you can chalk it up to an oversight. This happens more than once, that's a pattern. While inequities undeniably exist, I would go a step further and say by having only 1 single coach for some of these sports is unsafe. If a student were to experience a medical emergency on the baseball, soccer, or softball fields and need to be transported to the ER with only 1 coach, who's going to stay and supervise the remaining kids? What if this happened at the opposing team's field and the players' parents aren't in attendance? Or if the situation was reversed and the coach experienced the medical emergency? Now what? And before you think to yourself, well, geez, what's the chance of that happening? I can tell you, I've been a part of both of those things in the recent past. Continues to become more and more difficult to find quality coaches for all the reasons mentioned above. From speaking with A.D. Lauer, only about half of our coaching positions right now are currently filled by teachers. That number used to be close to or over 90%. Requirements to become a coach continue to increase while the rewards continue to diminish, both financial and personal. I've also sent you the document recently released by the district outlining the 23 qualifications needed to fill our vacant JV baseball position, which I know has been recently filled, and that's great. That was a great hire. Okay, 10 of which were mandatory. But can anybody wonder why it took so long to fill that position? It was months. Just last year, a parent who's upset about their child's playing time physically threatened both current and past coaches. The district did nothing about it for several days until a large number of spring coaches refused to continue coaching until action was taken, at which point the parent was banned from attending games for the remainder of the season, only to be allowed to be in attendance for the current year. Now, I wish we could say this is an isolated incident, but it's not. We as coaches are constantly subjected to angry parent conversations, texts, phones, calls, athletes being pulled in all sorts of different directions, and of course passive-aggressive, or sometimes just regular old aggressive social media posts from players, parents, and fans. It's reached a point where as a coach, unless you have a vested interest in the program, we start asking ourselves, why do I do this anymore? At a time when kids need dedicated quality coaches more than ever, coaches are fleeing in droves, and the turnover is almost constant. In a recent conversation I just had with Dr. Ziliak, he commented that as a child, he learned as much on the athletic fields as he did in the classroom, and I agree because I feel the same way. I'm asking you to take the time to consider everything that I've mentioned, address the areas that need improvement, and as a district, start providing our student athletes with what they deserve. Isn't this in fact our district's vision and core belief that we should strive to help each student become the best possible versions of themselves? Let's not just say these things, let's live it, okay? Starting as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beers. Is there anyone else? Sure.
All right, so you guys all know me, whoever doesn't. My name's Braden Carmen. I'm now the news reporter for the Observer, but before COVID, I spent over 2 years running the sports department for the Observer. The reason that I'm talking tonight is I honestly didn't know if I was going to talk tonight until I came in and sat down. I'm like, well, you know, I know a lot of stuff that might be helpful, so I figured I'd kind of give my perspective. We just heard about quality coaches and how important that is. In the time that I worked at the Observer running the sports department, I've met a lot of coaches. I've talked to a lot of coaches. Jesse's one of them, Tim's one of them. I've worked with Greg Lauer a lot. I mean, Fredonia employs a lot of really quality coaches. And they do so much that people don't know. Like, you know coaches on the field. You know coaches practicing. You know what you hear. Even as parents, you kind of have that perspective. But from my perspective, like, the coaches that go above and beyond doing things like taking kids on recruiting trips and out of their own pocket, just driving people around, promoting stuff on social media, calling the Observer, explaining things to us. I mean, there's plenty of stuff, like, I didn't know a lot about every sport. You know, I played baseball, I knew football, I knew soccer, but I didn't know everything. And there's been so many times where people would call and explain things to me and give me information and provide things, send in pictures, send in stats that, you know, they don't have to do. They're not required to do everything that they do, but they go above and beyond and do so much. And I've been to a lot of events. I mean, you can look on the wall, probably half those pictures I took them, and that goes back like 5 years now. And I've seen a lot of events, a lot of them being Fredonia events because they're, you know, part of the core coverage area for the Observer. And there are so many moments where people are going above and beyond and being good role models and, you know, teaching the right way. The kindness that people show, the parents that will come up to coaches afterwards and say, man, I wish my kid played for you, from opposing teams. I mean, Greg Sherlock, the football coach, every time I see him, he asks me how my daughter is. He's never met my daughter. He asks how my girlfriend's doing. He's never met her. He'll hug me every time he sees me. I didn't know him before I worked this job. And that's just a working relationship. But that just kind of shows the kind of person that you have leading these people. So I just wanted to kind of speak on that, on what coaches do that kind of goes unseen. And when things come up like, and maybe, I don't know the right way to say it, but when it comes up on the agenda, whether you should do a program like a flag football, or when Jesse brings up points like he did, there's so many things that people don't see. And having good coaches, having good role models, having people that you trust in positions like that is so important. And I think that they deserve credit for that, and they should be supported so that they stay and they don't move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to share real quick. First of all, thanks for coming. Whether you spoke or you were just here in support of what was being said. I also want people to know that when people come, we listen. We heard concerns tonight around facilities, athletic trainer, the AED access, water issues on the fields, the idea of additional assistant coaches, the handling of parent issues, quality coaches, continuous improvement, the aspect of the above, the beyond, and the unseen. So when people are here, we're listening and taking that in and trying to use that information as we move forward, whether that be now or in the future. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. So again, the next meeting is in 2 weeks on the 28th, 6 o'clock here. The board did receive a correspondence from David Lowry, who is a candidate for the Erie 2 BOCES Board of Education. And I believe that there was there another one, Ms. Slagle?
I've only gotten that one so far, but I
Just
think
that.
maybe you said you got another one.
No, that was this one.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, board members, just so you know that there is an open house with BOCES in April where we can meet the candidates because we will be voting on them later in April. So, if you want to know more about each candidate, you can do that. With that, Mr. Johnston, any comments, questions?
It's nice to see the Young and Rights in here, and the building condition survey is about to begin for our facilities, so seems like time has flown since we talked about it in November. And I want to compliment you on the administration on their halftime. I tend to live in the moment, and I have to be forced to reflect. But when I do, it's healthy. So I thought that was a very good theme, and tying it into the mission vision. So, good. That's it for me.
Ms. Palfora?
I think just kind of following on that reflection, I think we heard some great presentations today, some great comments about opportunities in the district, so certainly things for us to think about and see a way forward.
Nobody's mentioned the fact that Dr. Wright was talking sports analogies. Wow, I was impressed.
Oh, thank you. That's so funny.
Ms. Hahn?
I've got nothing.
No? No? Okay. Dr. Wright?
Back to me. I won't make a sports analogy. So I want to say that we had a really, really exciting time at EduCon, and it was wonderful to have a team from middle school and high school. Both Mr. Paschke and Mrs. Troutman were there with members of their faculty, and it was exciting to have a variety so that we had teachers who've been here for several years along with new teachers and somewhere in between. And so we were able to tour the Science Leadership Academy, which is a project-based learning charter school in cooperation with the Philadelphia Public School System. And we got to go to their middle school, and then we went to the high school as well. And so we were able to walk around and talk to teachers, talk to students. Students led us on tours, talk to the administrators. And that was, and then the next day, 2 days, were conferences where they have conversations. So time to go over a variety of topics. And we got to, meet and discuss common issues today and innovative solutions for those things with people from Washington, D.C., the state of Florida, Atlanta. We had the Albany area as well as the Philadelphia district, and some interesting presentations and interesting things to think about. So now we get to help have that piece of it as we're working to, on our STEM initiative and ways to look at things differently and challenge ourselves to see how, different schools function, different conversations about a variety of things. Our team went to LitCon, and that was very exciting to come back, excited about new ways to infuse as we work on our literacy initiative and our curriculum review for that. And right now we have targeted professional development going on for our Envision Math program, where it is a full day devoted to each grade level. So that's been very exciting to have that, and that was directed specifically by what those grade levels determined their priorities to be. So they determined their priority need for them, and then the trainer from the Envision company designed professional development to meet that. So that has been this week, and then it'll be not next week, but the week after. And then we'll get back together as a math committee. We're convening mid-year to then review where are we, kind of that in the tunnel idea, where are we in this halfway point, and let's celebrate all the amazing things. And that was really exciting to do at our conference day on the 30th, to talk about, it's so easy in that I had said that day that, you're in that February, it's still dark, it's, at the time the weather was pretty yucky, and it's hard to, you just feel like, when you look at the slides, it's like, look at all we've done in 20 weeks, it's amazing. And we can't forget that when we're in the tunnel planning to go out for the second half. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Paskey, what's going on in the high school?
I wanted to congratulate one of our seniors, Allie Cook. She's going to be honored this Thursday by the Dr. Fronia Rotary as their student of the semester. They used to do students of the month, and so now it's gone to semesters, and so she'll be honored Thursday at a luncheon with our Rotary. Her parents will be there, and Mrs. Hahn, thank you very much for your help in this process. And so we're excited for her. I also want to take a minute to thank Albert Ramirez from our district. He helped us to secure some fresh and free supply of Narcan. We do keep Narcan at school in the case of an emergency where there's an overdose, and our supply had actually expired. He was able to make a connection with Kids Escaping Drugs out of Buffalo, and if I could put a plug in for my wife, she drove out to West Seneca and picked it up on her way home from work. So it was nice to get that, so thank you for that. We had 2 great concerts last week for our strings and our band. Our chorus concert for all grades is coming up this week on Wednesday at 7, so I'd like to invite everyone to be there for that. Also, this week, Wednesday at our faculty meeting, we're going to be highlighting our projects and things that we're working for this year and next year in relationship to those goals that we talked about earlier. One of which is the addition of the ambassador program. Our ambassador program, people that are going to be in charge of that are going to be giving a little presentation at our faculty meeting. We've also started our lunch bunch group. We're going to be introducing that at our faculty meeting so that they can send little invitations from kids to our faculty to join them at lunch. And that's going to be part of just increasing the feeling of belonging and building relationships with the adults in our building, between the adults and the students. So fun things happening and good things for kids.
That's good. Yeah, great. Ms. Troutman.
Darren Stoll, I was going to talk about the all strings and all band
Oh,
concert last
sorry.
week.
I'm going to hear about
Tomorrow's all choral concert, but we're looking forward to that again. Our Safe School Ambassador training is next week, Wednesday and Thursday. Last year we trained 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, so now our incoming 5th graders will be trained along with some more 6th and 7th graders, so we can continue that on. So we're pretty excited about that, to get some more kids involved in our anti-bullying program that we have. Our 6th graders had their, 6th grade team had their Applebee's pancake dinner, breakfast, I shouldn't say dinner, on Saturday, and when I went there, the parking lot was full, the inside was full. It was, they said, the most people they have ever had since they started having it. So they made a lot of money, and so they'll be doing some exciting things for the kids in 6th grade. So, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Droutman.
Awesome, just 3 quick thank yous. Thanks to Ben Wendell and our special ed department for the recent trip to the local Home Depot. And we gotta thank you, Home Depot, because they put together a cool little day for the kids, where they tour the facilities, but then they have a little hands-on activity too, so that's a pretty cool event. Thank you to our PTO, they did a fundraiser called Sticks with Love. Although it was a fundraiser for the PTO, they wanted to ensure that every kid received one of the stickers that said Sticks with Love. So whether one was purchased for a kid or not, every kid in the building got a little Valentine's Day treat today, which was nice. And then thanks to our you guys for supporting our Kids Get Fit Club, which is an intramural that we run. We've had so many kids want to do it, we had to branch out and we doubled down on this intramural. So it takes place before school. We just had to split it in half. We have a group of first and second graders and then a group of third and fourth graders. And it just gets kids in the building a half hour before school, and we do some like activities in the gym. It's a good way to start the day. So thanks.
Ms. Farrow?
I appreciate the RTI presentation that Mr. Dellinger and his teachers did, that data team process, and the RTI system generates really cool and important data that's critical to the special ed process. And I thought it was a great presentation, so thanks. And I also wanted to say I appreciate the comments that were made tonight. Really well thought out.
Thank you. Is that Ms. Piper behind the... It is.
Again, thank you to Jesse. I've also had kids play in the sports fields and can speak to many of the things that you've spoken about. We've talked about those things through the years, so thank you for bringing that up. I want to also thank the PTO because we started Valentine's Week with a breakfast on Saturday, and we served breakfast, and we had kids come in and make crafts, and they had a photo booth, and it was a really fun morning Saturday here at the elementary school. I'm a little tired of this Valentine's Day in primary school today, so bear with me. Our pre-K students were very excited to create this invitation for our board members to come join us for Read Across America. And I know you guys can't really see this, but they actually wrote out, I just really wanted your attention. They wrote out this, each student did a letter, so it was super cute. It took them all week, so cordially invite you as board members to come join us for Read Across America. Some of our board members are not here, so we can stay on. Hopefully you can come to Wheelock and read with us as our pre-K students would like you to come join us for Read Across America. There you go.
March 2nd.
That's all I got. Okay. Now that I woke everybody up.
What a great opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Forbes?
Nothing to see.
No? Okay. And Ms. Sligo?
I just wanted to briefly mention that we have another SUNY Fredonia student who is working with the district office as a PR intern this year. So we did that last year and it was a success, and so we were able to continue doing that this year. Her name is Mara Marsh, and I'll have a little intro on her going out soon, but she just started this week, and she's getting her feet wet, and she did a lot of the s'more that you'll see come out tomorrow. So we're working on those kinds of things, and she's helping us continue to improve our communication. I'm excited to have her.
Good. Okay, so the board anticipates the need to enter into executive session to discuss matters pertaining to particular personnel. So if I could have a motion to move into executive session.
So, second.
Ms. Hahn and Ms. Powell-Fortner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are in executive session at 7:33. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.